Hello, welcome. So today we're going to be taking a little look at r/Am I the Bort Hole? So if you would like to judge some big old gaping bort holes with me today, then please do stick around and enjoy. And don't forget to like and subscribe, please, thank you. And just a little disclaimer, obviously any opinions that I do give on these stories that we read are my opinion. I am not stating that my opinions are facts. So yeah, just want to put that out there because the last video that I posted on Friday got like 4,000 views and that scares me. Like, it's great, but that scares me. So yeah. Anyway, let's crack on with the stories then, shall we? So first one, posted by Acrobatic Freedom 316. Am I the bort hole for refusing to drive a longer route to drop a girl off because she didn't want to be alone in the car with me? I'm not sure. I will have to unpack it as we go along. I feel like it's relevant to mention that I'm a male. This situation involves me and 3 other people. Let's call them Joe, Sandra, and Amy. I'm good friends with Joe. We've been friends since we were kids. I know Sandra through Joe, and the 3 of us hang out regularly. Last week, Sandra invited her friend Amy to hang out with us. Amy and Sandra are good friends, and she's met Joe before. It was my first time meeting her. We just saw a movie and then went bowling. When everything was done, Sandra asked me if I was okay to drive Amy home. I said, yeah, no problem. I'm the only one who drives, so I usually drop off everyone after we see each other. I live in the middle of nowhere, like an hour north of all of them. They all live pretty close together, from where we were and where everyone's house is. It made sense to drop off Joe first, then Sandra, then Amy, then continue on home. We didn't discuss the logistics in advance, so I dropped Joe off first and then was heading to Sandra's. I could tell Amy and Sandra were texting each other and they were kind of whispering. I had a feeling that they were talking about me, that's a bit rude, but I didn't know for sure until Sandra just pointed out that I made a wrong turn and Amy's house was the other way. I explained that it made more sense to drop Sandra off first, then Amy. It was only at this point that Amy mentioned she didn't want to be alone in the car with me. Her only reason was because I'm a man, and she alluded that being alone in a car with a man she doesn't really know is unsafe, and I would agree. I would actually agree. Even if your friends know the dude, there have been instances where things have happened, and us women do have to take our safety ridiculously seriously, even with people that friends of friends know and whatever. So I do understand where Amy is coming from there, to be fair to her. Anyway, bit rude though to be texted behind his back. She could have just said, would you mind if I get dropped off first, please? Because I'm quite nervous being on my own with you because I don't know you very well. And, I'm sure you're lovely and it's nothing against you. It's just, it's kind of programmed into us women, isn't it? To be so ridiculously safe and precautious because when we're not, terrible things happen. And it's awful to have to assume the worst of everyone in that way because, the majority aren't going to be like that. And you do feel awful for having to do that. But even myself, there have been times where I ended up, in a situation where I was left alone with a bloke that I didn't know, who knew someone that I knew. And they were very creepy and very gross or very pushy, trying to get me to go off with them somewhere and things like that. So, you could call it a biased perspective that I have because of my own experiences, but I would love to guarantee, I would put money on it, right? That now in the comments, there are other women saying the exact same thing that I've just said, that the exact same thing has happened to them. And it causes you to feel the need to be so super cautious around everyone, every guy you don't know. And it's sad to have to live like that. It really is. The really gross ones ruin it for the good ones. It's a shame. Anyway, so what she was asking me was to drop her off next, then drive 10 minutes back in the opposite direction of my house to drop Sandra off. Then another 10 minutes back the exact same way I just came from, passing Amy's house again in order to get home. My drive home is already an hour from town, so I said no. I didn't want to add an extra 20 minutes to my already 60-minute drive, and that is fair too. I do understand that. That is 100% fair too. They were both really pressuring me and trying to guilt me into just doing it, but I kept saying no. It was such an awkward car ride because they just didn't give up. Amy just got out of the car at Sandra's house. She kind of slammed the door all aggressively, which pissed me off a little. I just drove straight home afterwards. Joe called me the next day and heard what happened. He felt like I should have just done it, but I feel like their ask was unreasonable. I'm not going to go out of my way to do a favour for someone who just thinks I'm some messed up abuser or something. Anyway, just looking for opinions on whether or not I'm the butthole here. I do not think that the OP is the butthole. I just think they lack the perspective of someone who has had to think the worst of everyone to be able to keep themselves safe. So I don't think they're the butthole. I completely understand that they don't want to go 20 minutes out of their way, and if they don't want to, they absolutely shouldn't. If Amy really didn't want to be in the car with him on their own, then Amy could have got out at Sandra's house and, I don't know, got a taxi, Uber, whatever. But then you're still in the car with a stranger who you don't know. So, but then again, I suppose those are tracked and, you know, it's a lot more monitored, I guess. I feel kind of like there's no buttholes here, but they both needed to be a bit more understanding to each other's perspectives to, you know, not have this feeling of animosity, I guess. That's what I think. I think no buttholes here. I understand where the OP is coming from, but as a woman who has been put in a situation more than once with a bloke who I don't know very well, and they have gotten really creepy or inappropriate, I also see where Amy's coming from. And I see why she would be thinking the worst or being cautious of the worst, because it unfortunately is the way that women have to live. If we don't do that, unsafe things happen, you know? But I do understand for the OP that it does not feel nice to be lumped into that either. I just think there's no one wins here, is there really, honestly? But yeah, Amy could have been less rude about it. Like, there was no need to be texting behind his back and whispering, making him feel self-conscious, and there was certainly no need to slam his door. So, anyway, down in the comments, DisastrousArt1975 says, if they wanted you to do it that way, they should have been agreed upon before. Also, where did you pick them up from? And then OP says, I didn't pick them up. We met at the movie theatre. They probably took the bus or Uber or something. And then Bajart Skula, I think, says, then she can take another Uber. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay, then next post, posted by Zesty Close Limit 306. Am I the butthole for not taking my daughter to school in the mornings and instead making my wife do it? So, my daughter is 12 years old and she qualifies for bus transportation because her middle school is 2.5 miles away, and anything over 2 miles qualifies. Her elementary was the same distance and she rode the bus, but now my wife says she doesn't want her to ride the bus because she says bullying is possible. Although there's never been any so far. I told her I disagree. We are busy in the mornings as it is, and she likes to do her makeup for work. And I have my routine and like to sit back and enjoy my coffee before work as well. I told her that we could try the bus, and if anything happened for our daughter to tell us, and we can put a stop to it and try and resolve it, and if it can't, then we can choose to do car pickup drop off then. Yeah, that sounds absolutely reasonable to me. She got mad and so did I, and I said, fine, if you choose to do car, then you will be the one picking up and dropping her off, 100%, no exceptions. And she said, yes, I will, don't worry about that. Well, now she's burnt out and wants me to drop her off because she doesn't have the time to do her makeup, and is mad that I'm sipping my coffee while she's scrambling in the morning. She has also called me to pick her up on the way back from work, to which I've said no. Am I the butthole? No, I don't think so. If there was no bullying actually happening, no incident has happened, I don't see why you would burn yourself out doing pickups and drop-offs when the bus is an option. And I do understand that bullying does happen on the way in and out of school, and you deal with it if it happens, but it doesn't always happen. And, she's 12, she might want a bit of independence. She might not want to be dropped off by her parents every morning. Now, don't get me wrong. Would I like to have been dropped off when I was at school? Yeah, because I had to walk and it sucked, especially when it was raining. But no, I don't think the OP's being unreasonable here at all. I think the wife is being really overprotective, and I do understand that because, I am the same with my kids. I can get very overprotective and then I have to talk myself down from the ledge and be like, look, they are fine. Nothing's happened. You're making up scenarios in your head and worrying about them before anything has ever actually happened. So yeah, I do understand the tendency to do that as a parent. But if nothing's happened, there is no need to worry about it. If it does happen, you deal with it then, and you deal with it swiftly. But yeah, I feel the OP is being pretty reasonable here, especially when they qualify for transportation. So I'm assuming that means free transportation. So I bet it'd even save them a little bit of money as far as fuel costs. So then down in the comments, Starry Night 99 says, info, what are your daughter's thoughts on this? Is she okay with taking the bus? Why does your wife think bullying is possible, even though it hasn't happened? And then the OP says, yeah, she's okay taking the bus. She doesn't care or mind. She thinks bullying is possible because it's middle school. And then Ramen Noodles 620 says, by your wife's logic, she may as well homeschool your daughter then. Exactly, because bullying happens in school. Bullying can happen when they go out and play outside of your house in the street. Oh, and don't you worry, I am so aware of the parallels between this story and the last story we've just read, because obviously you could say, well, if you are saying that you have to be cautious in the last story, but you're saying that the mum is overreacting, being too cautious in this story, I do believe that the thing you'd be missing there is the fact that in this story, there is literally a bus driver and about probably, 30 other kids on the bus? So there are people around, whereas, yes, obviously the reason my opinion is differing now from the last story, despite the fact that I know that they're both kind of the same thing of being overly cautious of a possible scenario, again, is the fact that it's not like this child's going to be alone on the bus. This child is going to be with the bus driver, probably, that I think they have now for buses, school buses, or at least they do in this country. You tend to have a school bus monitor as well. So it's someone, an adult, separate from the driver, who is just watching, making sure the kids are behaving, basically. And yeah, 30 other kids. So no, the parallels are not lost on me. I do get it. I understand. But that's my reasoning for thinking that mum is being maybe a little bit too overcautious, because, yeah, it's not like the daughter's going there on their own, and it's not like there aren't options to then go, well, if that happens, we're gonna not, take her on the bus anymore. So, yeah, just thought I'd point that out. Next post then, posted by ClearYard2123. Am I the butthole for saying I don't give a fuck about my roommate's baby? Harsh. Very harsh. I'm 27F and I have a roommate, 25F. Originally it was me and my roommate, but she got pregnant by her boyfriend, causing her boyfriend to move in. How did that cause her boyfriend to move in? Could she not move out with him? What? At first, it wasn't a big deal. He wasn't loud, and my roommate didn't really bother me. But as the months passed and she got more pregnant, as that does happen, yes, she started becoming more entitled and rude. For an example, she would constantly steal my food, and when I tried to confront her, she would play the pregnancy cravings card. Absolutely not. But the day that finally made me snap was the day I brought home a small personal pumpkin pie. That was hard to say. Alliteration, my goodness. I wrote my name on the box and put it in the fridge. Later, when I went to get some, she was literally standing there eating the pie. Oh, I would have been so angry. Don't play with my food, okay? Honestly, I wouldn't have cared if she only took a slice, but this bitch was literally eating the whole thing. And fed up with her always eating my food, I got mad and I yelled at her. I asked her why she was eating my pumpkin pie knowing that it wasn't for her. She started crying and said that she's pregnant and she can't help that the baby was craving pumpkin pie. Oh, that's just so coincidental that the baby's craving pumpkin pie when the OP pie is a pumpkin pie. My goodness. In a fit of rage, I yelled at her and said, I don't give a fuck about your dumbass baby. Okay, that's a bit mean, but okay. She gasped dramatically, like I just said something world-shattering, and she ran off to tell her boyfriend what I said. Later, he called me a bitch, yelling at a pregnant woman who can't control her cravings. Yes, she can. She's still a human being with a working human brain. She absolutely can control her cravings. You can't control what you crave, but you can control going and eating someone else's food to satiate the craving. So, am I the butthole for saying that I don't give a fuck about my roommate's baby? Could you have been nicer? Yes. Did you need to shout at her? No. Could you have been stern though and said, I do not care what your excuse is. You should not be eating my food? Yes. So, could you have handled it better? Probably. Do I understand why you're really annoyed? Because she's basically acting like an entitled little child with no self-control just because she's pregnant and thinks that that means she can get away with it. I absolutely understand. I totally get it. And I mean, for goodness sake, please try and see if there is a way to get rid of the boyfriend, because if he goes, I think she would go, and then you can get yourself a nice new shiny roommate and not have to put up with any of this anymore. Go and have a word with your landlord. What a nightmare. So, down in the comments, Happy Knitten says, you were in the apartment. If baby was craving pumpkin pie, then mama could have taken 10 steps to knock on your door and ask if she could have some. Or, being a big old adult, she could have gone to the shop herself or ordered in. I don't know where you are, so I don't know if ordering in is an option, but she could have done that. Like, there is just no excuse for just helping yourself to other people's things. I, myself, personally see that as a massively disrespectful thing. I would never touch someone else's stuff, you know, their food, whatever, without asking. More importantly, is the boyfriend covering more of the rent and utilities? Did your rent go down to account for the extra person in the apartment? Yeah, exactly. Not the butthole. You should be looking for another place because this is only going to get worse once the baby comes. So, MRNGJew77 says, OP will get no sleep once baby arrives. And she, her mooch boyfriend, and baby constitute 3/4 of the living situation, and they should be paying 3/4 of the rent. Does the landlord know that the boyfriend has moved in? That's what I'm saying. Maybe the landlord can make him sign a lease and pay a deposit. This would give him skin in the game to take care of his living quarters properly. Or maybe the landlord would kick him out. Yeah, exactly. Either way, it's a win-win for the OP. I really don't like when we read stories where people try and use the fact that they are pregnant as a way to just disrespect others' boundaries, disrespect others' living spaces, or just think they can get away with anything, because no, you're pregnant, for God's sake. Like, you haven't all of a sudden become an endangered species that we need to treat with kid gloves. Like, grow up, you are an adult. Be responsible for yourself. And not only that, but on a wider scope, and I know this is a bit, like, dramatic, but I really do think it plays into the general population's habit of infantilizing pregnant women. Like, anyone who's been pregnant will know how people treat you like all of a sudden you aren't a human anymore, you are nothing but an incubator and you don't have a mind of your own. And it's so frustrating. Anyway. Next post, posted by Living Estate 3963. Am I the butthole because I refuse to finish a story if my husband interrupts? That's all I really have to ask. My husband insists on interrupting any story I tell while he is present to either correct me or to add to it. The latest example was today. We are visiting his parents for Easter, and I was telling him about our plans for our vacation this summer. We are doing a Mediterranean cruise. I was saying how it starts in Rome, and he interrupted me to say that it was a cruise of the Greek Isles. which it is, and it starts from Rome. Oh my god. So he's one of those, well, actually types. Oh. I get really annoyed with those types. I really do. Because it's just like, mate, does it matter? You don't need to be so pedantic. You don't have to be right all the time. Like, yeah, who cares? Like, give it a rest. So I stopped talking and let him finish the story, which he doesn't know. He doesn't know any of the ports of call or exertions. Literally, all he knows is that the cruise starts and ends in Rome. He kept pressing me to add information, but I politely declined. I said he was so anxious to talk about how the cruise started in Rome, he must know all about it. Like, obviously, normally I'd be like, oh, you know, you can just, don't be petty, you can add in those bits to the story. But obviously, like the OP has said, they are just so fed up of him interrupting all the time. And yeah, I get it. I do get it, because it is very annoying. And like I say, it's even more annoying when people interrupt to be like, well, actually, yeah, but the thing I said wasn't incorrect. Like, you don't need to add all that fluff just to make yourself sound smart, mate. He is off sulking because his parents think he's an idiot for not knowing anything besides that one tidbit. He said I made him look bad, so he is sleeping in his little sister's room. She still has a twin bed. Lucky for him, she is with her fiancé's family this weekend. So, am I the butthole for allowing him to finish every story of mine he chooses to insert himself into, whether he knows about the subject or not? I mean, again, is it petty? Yeah, but I feel like maybe this is something he does too much, and the OP is just fed up, and I get it. Edit. To answer the most common question I've read in the comments, which of the 100 times the conversation happened? That sentence didn't quite make sense, but I'm guessing it's where the OP says that they've told him, like, so many times about interrupting or something, perhaps. The first time he said he didn't realise he was interrupting. 50th time, more or less, he said it wasn't that big a deal. The last time, roughly number 100, he said he couldn't help himself, and that's just the way he was, and I needed to understand that he wasn't able to change. Yeah, but it gets to a point where it kind of gets a bit rude as well, doesn't it? I understand being excited to put your input in, and, you know, we all can be like that. We all can be like, oh, I know about this subject, let me talk too about it, and I get that. But if the OP has said, look, this is really pissing me off and it's driving me mental, please will you stop? Especially when you don't know what you're talking about. I get that too. So down in the comments, IcyGene7565 says, the resentment is building, I think. And then Rosalito Rodeo says, does not bode well. 4 horsemen of divorce ahoy. And then Embarrassed Cow 2441 says, resentment, contempt, lack of respect, indifference. Anyway, if you made it all the way to the end with me, then I appreciate you very, very much. If you give a little like, subscribe, notifications on, that is your initiation into the Coven of Void. Welcome. Whatever it is you're doing for the day, I hope you have a really good rest of the day. Goodbye. And don't forget to leave an offering of a comment for Big Al. Tra!